So, we are going to start our story at a magic show. Now, this isn't just any old magic show. This is the great Helga. The great Helga's magic show. That's what we're going for. And the great Helga is this wonderful magician who has been around, I don't actually know. She's kind of just been around. She's been here. She's been a magician for a while. I don't remember not knowing of her as a magician, is the thing. Like, I know everybody has, like, their, time in that stuff, but I don't remember her not being a magician, which is kind of strange. Because you'd think you'd remember a time where you didn't know, of this person or that sort of thing, but I don't. But whatever. We're not going to focus on that. What we are going to focus is on the night after her show. Her show went amazing. Everything went right. It went really well, actually. Everything went right, and it was wonderful and amazing. And after she went to her hotel room, and in her hotel room, it was her first night in that hotel. Like, she had flown in that afternoon. The show was in the evening. And it was a new hotel as well. Like, normally she went to the same brand of hotel in every city that she went to. Like, it was pretty typical. But this particular one, like, the hotel that she normally went to was, like, all booked up. Like, they didn't have any open rooms or anything, and so she was just hanging out at her one hotel, at this new one. And it was, like, one of those where, like, it wasn't, like, a tall hotel building. It was, like, in this, like, small town, the city over from where she had her show. And it was one of those that had, like, little, like, rooms scattered about. It was, like, a fancy one that had, like, there's, like, a cabin here, and then there was one here, and there was one here. And it was, like, all across, like, this wide property. And she had one of the ones that was, like, in the far back at the edge of the property. It was, like, one of the more secluded ones. It was, like, by itself, and so she was alone. Which was also, unusual for her, because normally she had, one of her friends came to see a show, or, like, her assistant would sometimes, like, share a hotel room and each have their own bed, or things like that. But this was, like, her first time alone. Overnight at a hotel in who knows how long. So she was just gonna have a relaxing evening. She had gotten herself a glass of wine. She had drawn a bath, and was ready to just relax. And so she ended up, like, she drank her wine, she took her bath, it was all good, it was all dandy. And as she was getting ready for bed, and she stepped out of the tub, she was drying off, she put her clothes on, was getting ready for bed in her PJs, she heard this, like, tap. Like, just like a, like, doop, 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 doop. But not coming from the direction of the front door. It was coming from like, the window that was, like, facing, like, there was, like, at the edge of the property there was, like, a woods, and the window was facing towards the woods. It was, like, a beautiful, like, scene to, like, wake up to, like, just the woods and nature and that sort of thing. And she heard, like, the tap coming from that direction, which was, kind of startling, because it was, like, the middle of the night, and to just hear this, like, tap, 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 tap on the window at the back, little unsettling, to say the least. And so she just started to walk that way and it stopped, and she just kind of was like, what was that noise? Like, what's going on? What was that noise? Like, what's up? And so she kind of went, well, maybe it was a tree, you know, maybe there was some wind blowing and it was a tree, and that there's a tree close by and it was tapping on the window. Like, maybe that must have been it, right? That must have been it. So she continued on with, like, her bedtime routine. Like, she started, you know, just like she had like a night face routine where she did like different lotions and like moisturizers and that sort of thing before going to bed. And as she was doing that, she heard the little like doop, 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 doop coming from the window again, like the tap on the window. And it really didn't sound like a tree. Like, when a tree like hits a window, you kind of know what that sounds like. And this is not a tree. But that's what she was acting like it was. She was acting like it was a tree because she didn't want to think about what else it could be. And so she ended up pulling out her phone and like calling her friend and just being like, hey, you're staying on the phone with me? There's something tapping on my window and I am scared. And so she was on the phone with this friend. The friend was like, why don't you just like call the police or something? Like, tell them you hear a noise outside. Like, that would be fine. That would work. You can do that. And she was like, no, it's probably not. It's probably nothing. I'm sure it's nothing. And so she stayed on the phone and she, you know, started creeping towards the window. Her plan was to like sneak up and just kind of like peek around the curtain that was there in hopes of like maybe seeing someone or something. Like, she wasn't sure what her plan was, but that was the best she had. So she, you know, quietly walked over to the window, and she like pulled the curtain just a little bit, just enough so she could see what was like tapping on the window. And it was this little toy figurine, and it was a little figurine of like a miner that was just, it was like a little mechanic one, that like a wind-up toy that was just like going like this, and it was doop, 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 tapping on the window. And so she told her friend on the phone, and she was like, it's a little toy, it's a little miner figurine that's just like tapping on the window. It's like a wind-up that's tapping on the window. What do I do? And her friend was like, call the police. Like, this is insane. You don't just like sit here with me on the phone while this is happening. Because, one, who wound it up? You said it's a wind-up toy? Who wound it up? If it's tapping, someone had to wind it up first. Which is kind of unsettling to think about. Like, who did do that? That's a really good question. And then there was a knock on her door. And when I tell you that her heart skipped a beat at that, to go from just kind of like someone pointing out to you, just like, hey, who wound up this toy? There's a little wind-up toy tapping on your window. Who did that? To suddenly having the knock on the opposite side of the building, knocking on your door. Terrifying. And so she screamed, as, you know, most reasonable people do. And the doorknob began to turn. And it was just a slow. And the door opened. And stepping in from outside was her assistant. And she threw her phone at him. Which, you know, I feel like that tracks. Like the door opens, you're scared out of your wits. The door opens, and you're just gonna throw whatever's in your hand at the person entering the room. Probably not the smartest move to throw your phone that has your friend on it at the person, but like, it happens. Everybody makes mistakes. And her assistant comes in and just goes, and just starts laughing, because this was his plan. He wanted to get a rise out of her. He wanted to mess with her, and he did. He was successful in that, I think. And the two joked about it and continued on. Ta-da! That was the story.